What is your 1 in a million story? Story 1. Not me, my wife. We lived in Jacksonville, Florida. She rarely gets sick, but has mild insomnia. Around Wednesday, she had a low fever and complained of aches and sweats at night and trouble sleeping. That weekend, she wanted to see the doctor. I told her she probably had the flu, just wasn't used to the aches, and she always had trouble sleeping. But if she was still feeling bad Sunday, we'd go to the clinic. Saturday night, she couldn't sleep, so we made an appointment for Sunday afternoon. But on our way there, sure enough, she's feeling better. Doctor checks her out. She's feeling fine now. No fever. He says she probably had meningitis, but is recovering. I'm due to go on a business trip to California the next day and ask him if he thinks it's fine that I go. He says, yeah, no problem. That evening, my wife is eating and laughing and all is good. Monday morning, I leave early. That afternoon, my neighbor calls and lets me know my wife was wandering in the street in a delirium. My wife didn't know where she was, so the neighbor drove her to the ER. I booked a flight home that night. The hospital checks her out. She has a fever, her blood cell count is in the basement, and she is completely out of it mentally. They're not sure what's wrong, and a bunch of specialists start descending on her. I have to fill out a bunch of paperwork on her medical history, where we've been, etc. They think maybe it's some weird autoimmune disorder. Not good. She gets a bunch of transfusions and put on a cocktail of meds while they figure it out. Third day in the hospital, the infectious disease guy comes in, blood parasite, maybe tick-borne. She'd been to the Midwest recently and could have caught it if she went walking in the woods or a park. The next day he comes in, they figured out the parasite. Why didn't you tell me she left the country? Huh? She hasn't. Well, she has malaria. Malaria? I thought you couldn't get that in the US. You can't. You need to go home and bring me her passport. What the heck? I retrieved her passport. The CDC comes and does a whole case study on her, which they wouldn't release to us. They set up mosquito traps around the neighborhood and mysterious vans start driving by, spewing clouds of stuff. My wife stays in the ICU for a week, but recovers just fine. If you look at the 2010 CDC infectious disease report, you'll see a discussion of malaria and how the XX number of cases are all related to people recently returning from endemic areas, except for one woman in Duval County, Florida, who received it from a cryptic vector. Can a local mosquito bite someone who was infected overseas, then bite her? The short answer is no. Only a certain mosquito breed can carry malaria, all of which have been eradicated in the US. At one point, someone involved in the case told us they caught a male Egypti mosquito in a trap nearby, but when we asked for official reports, they wouldn't show it to us and wouldn't comment. This story is scary, especially knowing that the CDC refused to share any of their findings with you. I wonder if they're hiding something. Story 2. How I met my wife. I'm from the Netherlands. She is from the US. We met in Israel. It was my first weekend in Israel. I decided to go on a pub crawl to meet some people and have fun. As I'm buying the ticket, my now wife walks up to the counter to also buy a ticket. The girl working there introduces us and we hit it off the first night. But I'm leaving in 2 days to stay with friends of friends in the middle of the desert for 3 months. 2 days after I leave, I lose my phone. I don't have any way to get back in touch with her. I had little money and could stay and work with the people in the desert, but I kept thinking about her. So after a week, I say I'm leaving. I take the next bus and then a train to Tel Aviv. I had no idea how to find her, where to stay, and very little money. I email a couple of hostels to find a work/stay agreement. Those jobs are very popular and usually planned months in advance. I get an email back when I arrive in Tel Aviv. I can come in for an interview because they have a spot. That itself is also ridiculously lucky. Right after the interview and dropping off my belongings, I went back to the first hostel to see if they would give me information. They wouldn't give me anything. Now I'm at a loss. Tel Aviv is a city of more than 500,000 people. I don't know anyone and have little more than the clothes on my back. Kind of defeated, I started wandering around and exploring the city. After a couple of hours, I get hungry and decide to treat myself to a restaurant. I'm well out of the tourist area and find a place that's almost empty and rather cheap. I sit down and order a drink and something to eat. As I get my food, I see my now wife walking past the restaurant. She sees me. I see her. I'm literally dumbstruck and just kind of grin and wave. Remember how I lost my phone? She didn't know that and just thought I ignored her, so she waves and keeps walking. I throw like 200 shekels, way too much, on the table and sprint after her. Explained, and the rest is history. How did it feel to live out the plot of an amazing Lifetime movie? I'd watch this. You really went the extra mile to track her down. Literally. I guess you could say that your love story began with a pub crawl and ended with a restaurant sprint. Story 3. I'm not sure about the odds on this one, but I survived a non-survivable plane crash. I was on an old PO2, which is famous for being very safe and uncrushable. I was on a tour of the desert in western China when I was like 7. My father's friend who hosted me and piloted the plane didn't survive, but somehow I got out with a concussion and apparently passed out for almost a day in the middle of the desert, in the wreckage of the crash, 50 kilometers from town. The people who found me were some tree planters. They plant greens in the desert to protect towns from sandstorms. A lot of people who live in these desert towns in China do this. They found me on their way to pick up a shipment, and the only reason they looked was because they were making a bet on how fast an egg would cook in the sand and went off the road to test. That's awesomely unbelievable. Did it make you afraid to fly or fearless? Nah, to be honest, I didn't remember enough for it to actually cause like a traumatic experience or something. I say this definitely counts as surviving 1 in a million odds. From surviving the initial crash to the tree planters finding you were very lucky to have lived, and we're glad you did. Story 4. I slept wrong one night and pinched a nerve in my neck so severely I lost the right side of my body. It just went silent, like it wasn't there for months. I woke up in the worst pain I've ever experienced and couldn't talk, move, or do anything. The ER doctor thought I was having a stroke. The doctor had never seen a case as severe as mine, and it was purely a freak accident. Recovery took months, but I have use of my leg and hand again, with some numbness. Other than pain and spasms, I'm mostly back to normal. Holy crap, just from sleeping wrong? Did they check for a spinal issue or something? Damn, my insomnia isn't going away now. I have pretty extreme lumbar lordosis, the bend in your spine that makes flat girls look like they have a big butt. But other than a deceptive butt, there are no major deformities. I did every test in the book and I get scans every 6 weeks now. There is nothing major wrong with my spine. I just bent my neck wrong in my sleep and pinched my spinal cord really hard. Story 5. When I was a teenager, I had just started working at the local Sears Auto Center Express Lube shop, and on day 1, did a quick orientation and my first oil change. The manager walked away when he felt I was good to go, and the oil change went well. Fast forward a few days later, my manager asked me to come into his office and he explained that the oil filter I used had one huge flaw. I didn't know what that was, and it turned out the filter was pressed on backwards into the filter can, and it wouldn't allow oil to flow in, and it damaged the motor. They had to purchase a new motor for the person, and I still kept my job. He said it was a 1 in a million chance that would have happened, and it did on my first oil change. Teenager, did one quick orientation, started working on cars. This is why I don't go to Walmart for my oil changes, or any oil change only shop for that matter. Story 6. I have the rarest type of synesthesia, lexical gustatory. It means I taste words. What's it like? With food words, I'd imagine you'd taste the food, but what do numbers taste like? Colors? Nouns? Do people's names have a taste? Sorry for the spam, but this sounds so darn cool. Yep, food words taste like the food. Other than that, words just have their own tastes regardless of what they mean. Also, the same words in different accents taste different. Story 7. I was struck by lightning while talking on a landline. This was in the early 90s. Lightning struck the telephone line and traveled through the handset to my ear. My parents drove me to the ER. I couldn't talk very well. My brain knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth didn't want to say it. I had a terrible stutter. My doctor told me that I had a dose of good old-fashioned electroshock therapy. My speech was normal the next day, but I get a terrible headache whenever a thunderstorm comes through. OMG, you are proof that this happens. I was told I'm crazy. I was laying in bed one morning in the early 90s. There was a thunderstorm happening. I was pregnant. I saw lightning shoot through the phone on my nightstand, and it went across the room. When my then husband got home, I told him. He didn't believe me, blamed it on being pregnant. The next day he told his boss. His boss said that's impossible. They laughed at me about it for years. They're both high voltage electricians. Well, I guess that lightning really wanted to get in on your phone call. But hey, at least you got a free dose of electroshock therapy out of it. Story 8. I am allergic to the cold, like literally. I get intense hives, swelling, I pass out, and throw up. It doesn't even have to be freezing. Below 45 degrees without a jacket, and I can't do it. I have to carry an EpiPen with me in the event that I drink something too cold or have a severe reaction. Cold urticaria? I have it too, but a much milder form than yours. I can drink cold things, and I don't pass out or anything, but I still get pretty bad hives when I'm in any type of environment below like 70 degrees. It makes me kind of happy knowing there are more of us. I'm on 2 different meds and it keeps a lot of the symptoms at bay, which is good because I live in Boston. Story 9. Not quite 1 in a million, but close enough. As a child, I had an extremely rare autoimmune disease, on top of having an extremely rare illness. I developed the rarer and most dangerous of the symptoms. My kidneys started shutting down. Most kids recover from this disease, but not always the ones with kidney issues. I was extremely lucky. I did not have to go on dialysis, and my kidneys eventually reached normal functioning levels. It took a decade to be completely cleared of the disease. My mother likes to call me a miracle child, not only because of this, but because she was not supposed to be able to have a kid due to health issues, and had several miscarriages before my stubborn butt decided to be born. Weird stuff. You've been put on this earth to do something. Make sure you do it before you go. First order of business, figure out what in the heck that thing I'm supposed to do is. Story 10. I was actually homeless for 4 years between 19 and 23 years old. As silly as it sounds, I used to earn some extra money at the time by helping around in a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. It was my biggest hobby when I was younger and was something I felt confident about. I also didn't have a passport or a bank account, so I couldn't get a normal job in the UK. Anyway, at the time, I was stuck not earning enough money without a passport or a bank account or a real job. Note, in the UK, you won't get hired by 99% of companies if you don't have a passport to prove you have the right to work. So one day, I get a phone call from a studio asking if I played Yu-Gi-Oh and would consider myself a geek. Also, if I wanted to be in a TV show. They said they would send me to another country as part of it. Being homeless, one of the biggest problems is being bored. So naturally, I said yes, but told them I don't have a passport. No problem, we'll get you one straight away and pay for it ourselves. I ended up on a show called Geeks that you can still watch on Channel 4 OD. Because I got this passport, I was finally able to get a job, a bank account, and finally a house. Now I'm looking after my 10-month-old daughter, who's playing while I type this. So Yu-Gi-Oh saved me from being homeless. I might be an anime character. You should try to get that to the company. Pretty amazing ripple effect that they certainly weren't expecting. I messaged the TV company a couple years later, when I became the manager. They didn't know I was homeless at the time, and they said they were extremely happy they helped me. Story 11. I own a Lego minifigure called Mr. Gold. This particular minifig was to celebrate the 10th series of the Lego figurine line. They're sort of like grab bags. You can feel for them, but you don't know what minifigure you're really going to get. So because they were celebrating, they thought it was a good idea to only make 5,000 of these. Anyways, when I was younger, and even now, I was really good at knowing which figures they are simply by looking at the figures' pieces and feeling out those pieces. I really liked the minifigures because I thought they were really cool and unique. So I really wanted Mr. Gold. My mom and I hunted for it for a long time, but after a while I gave up. Then one day I was at the Lego store and felt a distinct diamond piece and freaked out. Finding this figure was a downright fantasy. I'm 18 now and still want to relive 12-year-old me's pure joy as he opened the package. I used to work in a Lego store while they were being sold in minifigure packets. I can confirm how rare they are. I think about 4 were found in the UK overall, and like 13 in the States. I'm still foggy on the numbers. We used to offer to feel out the minifigures in the packets for kids and adults alike. Let me tell you, the amount of parents who came up asking me to find Mr. Gold, or that gold one, people don't understand how rare it was. Well done, amigo. Looks like you struck gold with Mr. Gold. Who knew that your talent for feeling out the right pieces would pay off in such a big way? Story 12. I was kidnapped when leaving work and held for 18 months along with 2 other girls. The guy who took us claimed himself to be an ineffable lower god and used cult tactics, manipulation, and control to have us be his family. I was allowed to leave to go to the grocery store as an errand, but knew if I didn't come back, the others would receive my punishment. I finally got away by stabbing my captor when I believed he was going to kill me. This should definitely be higher up. It seemed like such a nonchalant comment at first, but how are you doing now? No matter how garbage any other day can be, no matter how bad the argument or the problem, it will never be as bad as what I've already been through. So that makes today a pretty darn good day. Story 13. My ex was struck by lightning several times and lived. He died in a car accident though, so not as lucky as he claimed to be. Being struck by lightning once is unlucky. Being struck by lightning multiple times is lucky. If you get struck once and survive, you know God has a plan for you. But when you get struck a second time, you realize what plan he has. Story 14. I was on Tinder and was talking to this guy. He was supposed to meet me for dinner. I texted him and no answer. Then I texted him on Tinder. He said that he couldn't make it. However, I got a text back from the number. It wasn't the guy that I thought I texted. It was the actor Gerard Butler. I thought he was lying until he FaceTimed me. Nice guy. I really need more information here. Did you ever meet up with him in person? I didn't think this post would blow up. First, I didn't go on a date with him. He lives on the West Coast and I live on the East Coast. I didn't keep his number because I respect his privacy. When he FaceTimed me, he was super casual and asked me why I was using Tinder, and he wished me luck on it. Story 15. My life, and not in the cliche OMG the sperm made it to the egg kind of way. My father was married to somebody else and was officially missing and was last seen in the USA. My mother was a drug addict and alcoholic living on the streets of the downtown east side of Vancouver. She was already pregnant according to the pee test she took. She smoked, she did drugs, she drank, she did God knows what else to get her hands on those things. Somehow, I was born underweight but with only mild fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, caused by all of that. I ended up in foster care, going in and out from 2 to 5 until I became a ward of the province. I went on to get my bachelor degree and have broken the cycle. My children have a safe home and food on the table. They know they are loved. Good on you for kicking that cycle in the butt. I don't know you, but I'm proud of you all the same. Thanks, random kindness is the best kind of kindness. Story 16. I survived hypothermia earlier this month. I got it by walking with my brother in -40-degree weather with wind chill to the liquor store. We were already drunk a bit and never checked the weather. We got the bottle and headed back to chill in the fort, but I passed out. He ran to grab my dad and wake him up to get the truck. I was probably passed out for 10 minutes whilst they found me and dragged me into the truck and to the hospital where the doctor said I didn't have a chance and my father should be waiting for the call. I remember I woke up with the doctor shoving a big breathing tube in my throat, but I couldn't breathe. I was restrained to the bed trying to take it out, and remember the nurse saying, "Breathe," and I did once every 5 seconds until the doc finally said take it out. He did, and I gasped for life when they took it out, so relieved. I remember I looked at myself in a gown hooked up like a robot, wires connected to me and 3 machines around me and like 6 people in the room. Then the alarms on the machines went off and I blacked out. They monitored me for 8 hours until I was stable. I died in cardiac arrest for less than 5 minutes. Could be less. I was revived successfully and monitored closely. I woke up a day later, seeing my mother and brother. However, I was so high on morphine I think that I mumbled a few words and smiled at mom until I passed out. I freaking survived. I honestly am glad I survived. My hands got frostbite really bad, but it's normal now. This happened recently. I'm still recovering with a new lease on life. Alright, I'm gonna be the guy who asks, is there anything? Do you just die? Is it just black? It honestly felt like a blink. One minute I heard the machines going off and the next I woke up next to my mother and brother standing over me. But it was darkness, just pitch black. I wasn't scared when I woke up in the ER. I remember that, but looking back, I'm scared of going through it all again now. I'll post a video soon of my frostbite when I figure out how to. Story 17. I have completely unexplained hearing loss in my left ear. I had a cyst in it when I was 6, and the surgery to remove it and fix the ears was successful. When I was about 12, I woke up one morning with a killer headache and ear ringing, and after 3 days it went away, and so did my hearing. Doctors did multiple examinations and an MRI, and they said it should be totally functional. It just isn't. 1 in a million case. Stories like this make me paranoid. How could you even predict or prevent something like this? Could it happen to anyone? Story 18. About a year ago, I parked my car at the university campus parking lot next to my buddy's car, took a picture of both cars, and went to class. An hour later, my phone rings. It's a police officer who got my number from the university's help desk. He asks me to immediately come out to my car. I had a small amount of weed in my car, hidden well, so my mind went directly to that. I could see my car from like half a mile away and saw about 10 cops surrounding it, which I later found out were only 4 cops, 4 campus security, and 2 guys dressed in black. When I got close to my car, they confirmed it was me, asked to look at my recent pictures, and confirmed that indeed I was the guy. They asked me to open my vehicle and started searching. Then they arrested me for intimidating someone. The whole way to the police station, the cops kept telling me I had messed up, that it was good the cops arrested me because I messed with a psychopath, and I would have been dead if he found me before the cops. I still didn't know what the heck they were talking about. The questioning went on for 2 hours, and they kept saying they had me on camera and I should stop denying I was involved in this. Then after 2 hours, they allowed me to call my lawyer, but since I didn't have one, I called my dad, who worked 5 minutes away from the police station. He was there pretty quickly, and since he had all the details of the case, he was able to convince the cops and the psychopath that I wasn't involved in whatever they were accusing me for. That day, I understood that a similar photo of what I had taken before I went to class was sent to someone who was being harassed and intimidated through Instagram. I had never parked my car next to my buddy's car like that, so I was quite sure the other photo was taken the same day during that 1 hour interval between me parking there and the photo being sent. The cops and university security said that there was no one else there during that 1 hour taking a photo. So maybe I sent it to someone, but I was sure that the photo I took never left my phone. The guy who was harassed called his dad, the psychopath, and he was there to either beat me really badly or kill me. Luckily, security called the cops and I was arrested. So the cops weren't talking out of their butts when they said I was better off arrested. The next day, I went to the campus security office and demanded to look at the camera. Except for me, only some girls are seen getting into a car and leaving. So we slowed the video down, and indeed, they stopped by the car for about 5 seconds at the exact place the photo was taken. They were later called to the security office and admitted that they were the ones that did it. It still boggles my mind how my simple decision to take a picture of my and my buddy's cars almost landed me in jail. Did they say how a pic of your and your buddy's cars were intimidating to the guy? I don't get that. I assume the girls added a note or something to it on Instagram, but why the pic? The girls had insulted and harassed the guy through a fake Instagram profile. My buddy has a similar car to the harassed guy, so the girls took a photo of my buddy's car thinking it was the other guy's car. They sent the photo to that guy saying something like, "We're here, we follow your every step." The guy identified the campus parking lot and went there with his psycho dad, thinking the car in the photo was of whoever was harassing him. They were there originally for my friend, but then when the cops came, they checked the cameras and saw me taking a photo, so they thought I did it. The next 24 hours were surreal, as almost nobody believed me since they had camera footage of me taking the photo. They still thought I had something to do with it. Even when we checked the cameras the next day, the head of campus security started laughing when I said the girls were the ones who took the picture, but after I insisted they questioned them, the girls immediately admitted it was them. Story 19. I've survived being stabbed, shot at, hit in the head with a 75-pound object, being T-boned, rolling 2 vehicles, an alligator almost taking off my arm, stepping on a baby rattlesnake, being caught in a fire, near drowning, and hypothermia. I also stopped one of the busiest interstate highways in the country to save a horse that was running in traffic. Most of all of that before 25. Okay, Indiana Jones, don't burn through all of your luck before you hit middle age. Story 20. I don't know the odds on this, but when I was, maybe 12, I met a person on a Neopets forum with common video game interests. We ended up getting along famously, and it turned out she lived nearby. Nearby being a country across the water from me. A few years on, and we decided to turn our hanging out on chat programs into a long-distance relationship. 11.5 years later, we've been living together for half of that time, and she's the love of my life. A Neopets thread. Even I have trouble not laughing when I tell people that. I'll bet that not even 1 in 1 million successful relationships are started on a Neopets forum. Story 21. When I was 14 years old, I woke up one day with heavy stomach cramps. We called the hospital and they told us that I probably have a stomach flu or should go to the doctor the next morning. After one of the worst nights ever, vomiting and sleeping next to the toilet, we went to the doctor. I had a fever of 40 degrees Celsius and was aching a lot. The doctor told me I had to go to the ER and have it checked out because she thought my appendix was inflamed and causing the pain. We went to the ER and I stayed in the hospital for about 2 weeks, but they couldn't find anything. They treated me with a broad range of antibiotics, and after 2 weeks I was feeling a bit better, and they told me to go home and recover. The night I got back from the hospital, I went to bed and started hallucinating that I lived in a retirement home and that pirates were coming to steal our food. So I was flailing around trying to fend off pirates when my mother came in and asked me what all the fuss was about. I told her what was going on, and she looked at me like I summoned the devil. She took my temperature and instantly took me to the ER again. I had a 41 degrees Celsius fever. When we went back to the hospital, I got treated immediately immediately for inflammation, and they did a wide range of tests again. They saw that something in my body was inflamed, but they couldn't find it. I stayed in the hospital for about 2 more weeks when they finally found what was going on. My appendix was inflamed and burst the night I had hallucinations, but on all of the scans they couldn't see my appendix. The doctor told me that if I came in 2 days later, I would have died because of the pus flowing in from my body. Apparently, there's a 1% chance of all appendix cases that the appendix is so stretched out that they can't see it on scans, or that the area was so inflamed they didn't see it. So after staying on antibiotics for about 2 more weeks, they finally removed my appendix, and all the pain was gone. I stayed in the hospital for over 4 weeks just because of my appendix and my bad luck on being that 1%. How vivid were the hallucinations? Do you still remember all of it? Or were you more in and out of consciousness type deal? The hallucinations were crazy vivid. I still remember it to this day, burned in my memory. From what I feel like it was happening in real life. I could see my mom walk in the room, but she was just in it and was trying to help her out. I can still remember the names of the elders lying next to me in sunbeds. The human mind can do crazy things. Story 22. I'm 19 years old and male. In August of last year, I was driving with my sister when suddenly her face turned cold. "Gavin, your eyes are yellow," I remember her saying. I quickly pulled down the passenger side mirror, and to my horror, 2 yellow eyes radiated back at me. Fast forward, I spent a month being sick. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis A. We went back to the doctor, nothing was better. Things were worse, in fact. I was sent to the ER and then to the liver transplant unit at UCSF. By this point, my eyes had turned muddy orange, and my pee was the color of a mahogany tree. Anyways, the team of liver doctors at UCSF managed to save my liver. I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. Oh, and my eyes are white again. Yikes. I always assumed the yellowing due to liver damage happens so slowly it's almost imperceptible. That is terrifying. It was so strange. My eyes turned yellow over the course of a day. I apparently have the more aggressive form of this disease. I lost 20% of my liver before they figured out my diagnosis, and the road to complete recovery is a very long one. According to my doctors, the liver is your most regenerative organ, so it will hopefully be normal again someday. One kind of cool thing is that some of my liver samples got sent to the Mayo Clinic and have a totally new perspective of my life and health. And yes, I was terrified. Story 23. I was diagnosed with leukemia. I then got a bacteria growth which killed the leukemia, a real 1 in 1 million chance. This might be a stupid question because I have almost no knowledge on the subject, but could that bacteria be studied and used in other treatments? No, because it was a miracle I even survived. The bacteria killed the leukemia, but also almost killed me. That's amazing. You would think they'd at least try to study the bacteria that saved you. I've known people who have survived cancer but died from the effects of chemotherapy. Your story kind of reminds me of that. It cured you but almost killed you. It really is miraculous that you survived. Story 24. For my 7th birthday, we went to Disneyland. They just happened to be having a car a day giveaway, and we were there. For my 7th birthday, Mickey Mouse gave me a Pontiac Firebird. You're lucky. 10 years ago, I won a car, but because I wasn't 18, they couldn't give it to me. Yeah, since I was under 18, it went to my mother's name, but I was the one that got the I want a car pin and my picture in the paper for it. When I was like 14, I called to request a song from my local radio and somehow called and won Super Bowl tickets, but couldn't get them since I was underage. Thanks for watching and listening all the way to the end. If you have a similar story that you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.